night, Tuesday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you. We're grateful to be back with you for another week of shows. We had a great show last night with James Akers, and we've got a fantastic show with you tonight with our dear friend Andi Buerger, voicesagainsttrafficking.com. We haven't had her on in a while, but it's been our fault, not hers, and I'm just grateful that she's with us tonight. Andi, such a pleasure. We've got you on the phone tonight, and we are grateful that you're here, whether you're on the phone or video. It really doesn't matter to me, but we're grateful to have you tonight. Welcome back to the Mac Files, and how are you, friend?
Well, thank you so much, Chris. I am very well honored and pleased to be back on the show. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking, and excited to help your audience and people that are listening and get more information about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we got some serious stuff to talk about, and I want to just fix our microphone here just 1 second so they can hear you better. There we go. That should help. There was the reason I brought you on tonight. I was troubled last week when Mark Wayne Mullen, Department of Homeland Security head, and Attorney General Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, they came out and said that they had determined that during the Biden years, there was close to 450,000 missing kids, and they had found 146,000 of them. 300,000 are still missing tonight. That's because of the open border situation. But the thing that caught my ear was the brutality that within that 146,000 that they have found, they said at least 600, maybe 700 of these kids, Andi, were trafficked, brutalized, raped, and God knows what else. We don't know. But this is the state of America right now, and it really is the state of the Biden era. It's going to be a stain that's going to live with that administration. And the way I look at it, some people need to go to jail for this. This is so disgusting that we allowed this to happen, that we allowed almost 500,000 kids to go missing under our watch. That is unbelievable. And it's not a good unbelievable. It's unbelievably horrific.
I agree. Absolutely. You're spot on. And here's the thing. It didn't have to happen that way. There are a number of things, so bear with me. Okay. And you're right. Kudos to the agencies that work together to at least find the kids that they did. And I'm just going to say, having been in this, what you might call an industry, trying to rescue, save, and prevent more trafficking, especially as a survivor. This is very disturbing, and there's going to be more than 600. Remember, it's only about what's reported, and not every one of those kids is going to be able to report what happened to them. First of all, I don't know how many even speak English. In the beginning, if you remember, there was a lot of outcry. Well, it's not compassionate if we don't let these kids and people come over, and yet we lost 450,000 of them, and then we have brutalized them, and nobody was upset about that. Everyone was interested in the Epstein files, but no one was concerned about almost 500,000 children, that went missing. And wherever they dumped them, wherever they took those kids, you can bet they didn't have nice, clean bathrooms and a kitchen and, couches and beds to sleep on. We know from my work in this industry that when there are large numbers like that, they're basically thrown into either a basement, a warehouse, whatever. We have folks that are members of ours that have worked, underground, so to speak. And we just know things that I wish we didn't know, Chris. But here's the thing. Yes, we found the kids. Yes, there are more missing. But why isn't America saying, wow, enough is enough? Why are the children being sacrificed in this country? However they got here. And it said, well, they track these kids to their sponsors. Well, just the same way as you can pay anybody, you can pay someone to say, oh, I'm that kid's sponsor, right? And then take them right into a trafficking ring or sell them or do whatever you want. In the Biden administration, it's been a while, but the average price for a child that was brought over the border was about $3,200, and you could do whatever you wanted with that kid. They had a number written on their arm, and you could call that number, and you could pay, and you could do whatever you want with that child. I mean, how sick is that? How sick that the U.S. even demands that kind of thing. But again, where's the public outrage? Why aren't people, hey, what do we do with these kids? Why aren't the people with the resources and the power saying, we need to build a shelter or build a way, build somewhere where we can bring these kids and help get them rehabilitated or healthy, or at least put them in clean facilities and have them checked out medically, all of that. That's compassion.
That's very
not
compassionate.
just,
Absolutely.
yeah, not just coming across the border and saying, hey, look what we did. No, there's nothing to be proud about. And as a survivor of familial child sex trafficking for 17 years, as you know, I am very passionate about this because the Biden administration knew where those kids were. And it's a horrible legacy to attach to any presidential tenure, but this is horrific. This is very, very evil, in my opinion.
Without a doubt. With Blanche bringing it up and Mark Wayne Mullen, do you feel like that there will be justice for these victims? Because that's a lot of kids. And like you said, I don't think the 600 or 700 kids is probably the right number out of that 146,000 that were brutalized and trafficked. And just what you described, Andi, I would be ticked to the world if one of those children were treated like that. But you're talking thousands.
Absolutely.
And this burns me up. This got under my skin last week, like you, and I thought of you immediately because we've not really talked about this directly, but I wanted to tonight. How sick this industry is. And that it is happening in our neighborhoods. It's happening not just in blue states. It's happening in red states. We've had issues here in Tennessee. I've heard of stories coming out of Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, my hometown, during the Super Bowl. I understand the Super Bowls are usually the most trafficked event of all because so many people come from out of town at these sporting events, and it's got to stop. And do you think, it's sort of an open-ended question. I know that this is maybe not easy to answer because I don't think anybody can stop it all. But do you think with a attorney general like Todd Blanche that at least they're going to pursue it more vigorously with Mark Wayne Mullen and him than was done with these losers? And as I said, I wish every single one that was responsible in the Biden administration for allowing this to happen, I hope they spend the rest of their natural-born lives in a federal penitentiary. And to be frank with you, if you traffic a kid, in Chris McDonald's book, that's the death penalty. It's death penalty stuff to me. That's the way I look at it.
Well, it's a life sentence for the victim. I can tell you
Absolutely
that myself
it is.
because I'm in my sixth decade of life, and it was only 2 years ago where my last predator actually died. And so two died. One was 92 years old, and the other one was 70 years old. And so I, as a survivor, even though I've done the work, I've done the counseling, I've done all the stuff, because God has, taken my life and worked it out to help other people who were like me. But for those who don't or can't get that help, I knew that there could be any moment one of those faces could show up in my life for over 6 decades, Chris. So imagine the ones that survive. They never know for sure. The only way a victim or survivor know for sure that they're safe is if the predator is dead or they're locked up in solitary confinement somewhere for the rest of their life. And I know there are people out there that, well, that's so inhumane. Really? Well, let me tell you what happens to these children, whether they're 4 or 6 or 12 or 14, they will be sexually violated at least 20 to 25 times a day, okay, in a 24-hour period. What adult could even stand that kind of activity? Right, let alone a child. And we wonder why they're drugged. We wonder why they're messed up. The few that are lucky to survive, and out of 100, you're going to be lucky if one walks away and survives, but then has to live with the trauma and some other things we'll talk about in a minute. But 20 to 25 times a day, if the child can't survive, they'll take the organs or they'll kill the child outright. So these kids have something in them, I'm telling you, to be able to have survived long enough to be found, because we're the beginning of the Biden, so 4 years plus, maybe 5 at this point. So they suffered all through this without anyone interceding, without anyone looking for them. Now, I will say, in the first administration, Trump administration, I think the numbers were close to almost 6,000 predators and traffickers were caught. They were prosecuted. And then, of course, the Biden administration happened. And now this administration is doing it again. They want to put an end or at least make a deterrent to people thinking they can just sell another human being with no consequences. So I'm with you on, I hope that the people responsible for the open border, every single one, have their due, whatever that looks like. But at this point, I want to find the rest of those kids. I want to get all the therapists and all the doctors and all the people who have been blessed by this country to go and volunteer their time to help these kids. It's not their fault. They're here.
Would that include Joe Biden himself, who allowed this border, that he needs to be held to an account? And in Mayorkas, at the very minimum, I believe, and I look at the Attorney General that was under Biden, Merrick Garland. You know, he knew this stuff was going on. Very few predators were prosecuted during his time. They were more worried about getting Trump and getting him on false accusation and false lawfare than dealing with this kind of issue. And I'm glad Trump has taken the reins again. But let me ask you about the trauma a little bit, because
sure,
some of these kids, you know, I've got the figure up. There's still 300,000 missing, on an average, 1 to 10. 10 being the most likely, 1 being the least likely. On that scale, how likely is it that, is there like a time frame once a child goes missing, that I know that every day that goes by, the chances of finding that child go down? But on a scale of 1 to 10, where we're at with this number still at 300,000, what's the chances that we find these kids? Because who knows what they had. Like you said, some of these cartel members and these traffickers are so brutal, they're so wicked. It is absolutely the most depraved individual to do this stuff. They use these kids for organ donors. They use these kids for ungodly experiments, and just people. I don't think people understand how brutal this industry is, and it's dark, Andy. It's dark stuff that has hit our country, and it's not just our country; it's the entire world. But are we gonna? What's the hope that we find these kids before it's too late?
Well, the clock is ticking, literally. So, for perspective for the audiences, every 40 seconds, and I'm using a conservative number from a couple years ago when Donald W. Washington was head of the U.S. Marshals, and he said every 40 seconds in the United States alone, a child 18 or under is abducted or lured into something that is unsafe. Maybe a summer job, babysitting, I want to be a model, local photographer wants, a student, whatever it is, art classes, whatever it is that seems safe. So think about that. In the time we've just been talking, we've already got kids that are gone. And so every neighborhood, every community has this, whether we want to accept it or not. And a lot of people, it is dark and disturbing. They don't want to deal with it, which is why Voices Against Trafficking helps people understand without terrifying them, but gives the truth, but also the hope. I mean, in my life, I shouldn't be here. And I know you know that, because my first suicide attempt, I was 5 years old. I wanted to be dead, because at least being dead, I would have been at peace. Nobody could touch me. And it sounded like a really good idea, and then God met me on that curb, and he said he had a plan for me. And I believed him, and I thought, okay, but it wasn't easy. I was 17 the last time my birth mother tried to choke me to death and kill me. So these kids, however, walked into the lion's den with absolutely no advocate. And here's the thing, DHS, Department of Human Services, normally would have a 30-day processing period per child. During the Biden administration, that was up to every 10 days. Okay, so 10 days to process, which means you can't properly vet if they truly have a family member here or any connection to anyone in the U.S. in that time with that amount of kids. It's just too much. And like I said, I know of one case in particular that was brought to my attention a couple of years back. They found, there was a whistleblower who found one woman was allowed to sponsor, quote unquote, 8 children, and was found out to be selling them through the foster care system. So we have issues. And because of the lack of respect for human life and human dignity, and the fact that we've gone back to seeing children as chattel, that they're just products to be sold. And here's a note, because I know people that are older than 18, they get violated, they are trafficked too. But for right now, I'm talking about the future of our country, the true innocence right now. So these kids have suffered egregiously, and yet we didn't have a problem with that. People wanted to have the celebrity predators. Oh, well, who went there or who was part of it. But nobody gives a rip about these poor kids that can't defend themselves. And like I said, they didn't have nice bathrooms. They probably didn't get fed well. They're lucky if they had food or water or anyone there to advocate. And the sick part is, even as the administration closed with Biden, they could have released them or rescued them. They could have ended that era, but they didn't. They weren't concerned about it. And I agree that if you participated, if you were complicit in this in any way, jail time is the least that you can serve, because these kids will live with whatever happened to them for as long as they have breath.
You mentioned the foster care system. Is there, if you had to list the top 3 traps that these kids fall into? I know the foster care is one of them, but would you say internet gaming would be another one? And things like you mentioned the movie Cry for Freedom. I know a lot of people have seen that with Jim Caviezel. That situation was where some creep organization put an ad in the paper down south of the border for modeling, child modeling, and the daddy took the kids to the place, dropped them off, and they said, "Well, come back. You can come back at 5:00 today and pick them up." Well, he comes back and they're gone. And so an act of heroism. And what made me so infernally mad was the woke right and the woke left demonized both Caviezel and the guy that he portrayed in that movie. And, it sickens me that people do that kind of stuff with people that are trying to help rescue these kids. And that's just, again, the state of affairs in America. But in that situation, that was sort of what you mentioned a while ago, that these kids are drawn to stuff like that. And the parents had better be very careful. I wouldn't be leaving my kid alone with anybody till 5:00 these days. I don't care what it is.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. There's a few things, actually. See, now I'm just like, I just want to jump in.
Go ahead.
Into the deep end. Go ahead. but okay, let's go back to your comment about the movie. Yes. My question is, why are the woke, or why are the naysayers so upset about the revelation in that movie, or about the people who are trying to help find these kids? What's the big deal? Because I don't care how big or how small. If you have a community of 4 people and one of them's a child, every person in that community deserves to have their rights protected, to have dignity, and to not live in fear that, they're going to be abducted or sold. Okay. And so then, and in the massive cities, there's a lot of room for criminals who are very smart. They're smarter than most people, because I see the same things happening. Parents leaving their kids in the toy section of a big box store while they go get groceries. Well, guess what's also in the back of that store? Restrooms, exit doors, all kinds of ways. And we know for a fact that kids have been found in containers who were originally abducted from big box stores. Okay. Wow. So we have all these things going on, but who's responsible? We as a community, as a national community. This is not a political issue, Chris. I know you know that, but for your listeners and your viewers, this is not right versus left, folks. It is right versus wrong. And when did it become right to violate a human body, especially a child, to take that innocence away from them? Okay, because they've had their childhood, right?
Yeah.
The adults that want to control our children and take rights away from parents are ones that have already had their childhood, but they feel like they have the right to take someone else's childhood away from them. And I could go on forever on that, but let's go back to being lured into it. Okay, so who else is interested in their their daughter or their son being famous, or being a model, or living, getting some scholarship or whatever, no matter what they have to do for it. It's the parents and the guardians. The type, the parent that my son's going to be this, or my daughter's going to be this, or oh, she's going to be the next cover of Sports Illustrated. So they go along with things, or they use it as free as daycare, basically. Sure, go ahead, honey, go to the photographer. I had a photographer that tried to snatch me when I was 16. And it was only through the efforts of someone else who recognized the poses he wanted me to do that it wasn't right. And luckily, he didn't get me in his car to take to his quote unquote studio. But it happens all the time because we're not one. Most important thing, Chris, to me, have a conversation with the kids in your life, no matter what age. If you don't know how to have a conversation about safety and awareness, that's what Voices Against Trafficking and many other organizations are here to help you with. An age-appropriate conversation, something beyond stranger danger, needs to happen as a family unit, whether you're a single parent, a foster parent, a grandparent, two parents, or just an adult that's in charge of someone's children for the majority of the day or the evening, because families are working. So if you have that conversation, I had a mom that called me one day. She said, "You know what, Andi, I went on your website, I saw the tips about ways to keep kids safe, and I sat my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, and my 10-year-old down. We had taco night, and I asked them if they understood what human trafficking was, or what it means to be lured into something that looks safe." She used age-appropriate words, but that was the intent. So they sat down and they had a conversation. And one of the things I tell every adult that has charge over any child is, let them know you're not trying to police them. You're trying to protect them. And as a family unit, or whatever kind of unit you have, that is the key to those kids trusting you enough to speak up, trusting you to say, "You know what? I made a bad judgment. I went out with my friends, but I don't feel comfortable because of this or that." They should be able to call or text you as the adult and not be judged, not be punished, until you get the whole story and you make it safe for them to say those things to you.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We don't talk to kids anymore. We let the movies
so
do
true,
it.
Andi.
We let the internet do it.
So true.
We let our teachers do it. And here's the thing about the internet. I'm sorry, I'm on a real roll now.
Keep on going. I'm not going to stop you. I like the rolling while you're rolling. Keep going.
The internet, we have over 1 million predators a day, Chris. 1 million a day and growing, that troll the internet for product. Kids, adults, babies, teenagers, doesn't matter. Boys, girls, transgender, it doesn't matter. They just need product, and they are looking for a way to capture your child or your nephew's interest or your sister's interest on that internet. And with AI, it's going to be a whole nother thing, but that's another topic. But we need to be able to say, if you're a parent or a guardian of a child that has a cell phone at an age appropriate age, not 5 years old, okay, but somewhere where you've talked to them about
Good point.
the responsibility for that phone. And this is, we will let you have this phone for emergencies or for texting only or whatever. And if you violate, the way it should be used, then you lose that right until you can show us you're responsible. After that point, once they have that, they need to know safe words or safe phrases, which we provide, and we help people figure that out if they don't know what to do, that only the immediate family knows or the immediate caregivers know. And if the child or teen or college student gets into trouble, they can text that word or that phrase, and the parent or guardian or safe person in their life will know, I got to stop everything, and they need help. So that's one of the things. But on the internet, these kids are approached daily, hourly. The longer they spend on the internet, the more approaches there will be. But with that phone, if you're I backtrack, but with that phone, if you're the guardian or parent that provided it, you have a right to look at it. And again, hey Jane, hey Joe, not trying to police you, just trying to protect you. But the best way to get that information is to say, hey, what are you looking at? I'm really interested in what you're interested in, Jane or Joe. Can you show me, or can I see what you're seeing? Can you, tell me about it and why it interests you? Make a conversation out of it. Yeah, take a couple of minutes with your kids, each one individually and as a group if there's more than one, because they need to know this to save their life. And as they get older, let me tell you, the most dangerous place right now for a female 18 to 24 years old is on a college campus.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And not just for obvious reasons. I mean, back in the day, I remember when I was in college, just shortly after, dirt was discovered.
Right. No, I'm not going to say that's right, but yes, okay. But yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I remember in the dorm room, people, coming out of the rooms and talking about a girl that had just been raped in the parking lot of the college, and that was like huge news. People were outraged. And yet today, we don't seem to care about that anymore. And we don't care that kids are missing, regardless of what you believe about the immigrant kids being here or not. It's not their fault. But the thing is, we stopped being diligent because we abdicated our responsibilities to the TV. Again, schools and sports and the lure of fame for our kids. Think about the national headlines with the colleges. We got Pennsylvania, we got West Michigan, we have USC. They've all had scandals all about violations. And yet, where were the parents? Who was being diligent while their kids were at college?
No, it's a great point. And, you're bringing up a lot of things that I think are, I call them bigger picture things, because what you said a while ago caught my attention, and you're absolutely right. We've got a nation that's more fascinated with the dead pedophile and maybe to get some famous person on a list than we are about 300,000 missing kids that are really more of an issue that we should be screaming about. And, and I'm going to ask you about the border, because I know you mentioned the migrant children. It's not their fault. We want to make it clear it's not their fault. But I will say that the illegal immigration issue is the fault, because unfortunately, because we've had such an open border until Trump came. And look, the very fact we're talking that 146,000 kids were found is a miracle out of 450.
Absolutely.
Because the Trump administration has cut down on the border issue. But has the border played, what percentage of this do you think this open border for the last 8 years, 4 years under Biden and 8 years under Obama, so we say 12 out of the last 16 years, has done to facilitate this trafficking issue?
Oh my goodness, it's a free pass. You go anywhere in the world and open up a border, you're going to have criminals. You're going to have transnational criminal activity, and it's all about the money. I mean, right now, globally, we're at about $160 billion in trafficking, and I believe 95 billion-ish is all about sex activity. And for those that aren't clear, human trafficking is for sexual issue or sexual activity. It's for labor, and it's also for debt repayment. And I'm going to put this out there because some people may not understand. There are countries that are so poor, and this doesn't make it right, but there are parents who think if they can get their child to another country like the U.S. that's prosperous, has hopes and dreams and, all of that, they'll send them with somebody or pay somebody to take them over the border. But there's no guarantee that child is going to make it over the border and be completely normal and go to a nice school and have a nice family.
Right. It's well said. Let me just take a little break here with the audience. Folks, you're watching a very special Mac Files early bird special with our dear friend Andi Buerger, voicesagainsttrafficking.com. It's her website. She's a tremendous friend and a tremendous voice for this. If you got a question for her, and please keep it on topic. There's just some questions that when I tell people to keep it on topic, they're way out there in left field. Please keep it on the topic of trafficking and what we're talking about tonight. I'm sure she'll be glad to answer them here in a minute. We'll take your questions. You can go ahead and be putting those in. Andi, you've got, I've had you on talking about trafficking in general, but you've got something you wanted to share tonight about a specific case that you're dealing with. I want you to go ahead and tell people about what's happening with that and and make us aware of this, because it is a tragic situation that you shared with me by text this week. It's terrible.
It is. It very much
terrible.
is. And we won't use names or anything, but I will give the general, because this isn't the only case out there. This is just one that happened to be the grandmother is in my neighborhood, and her daughter has 2 children. The dad filed for divorce several months ago and wants control of the 2 girls. You have one that's 6 and one that's a toddler. And so, but what happened with the 6-year-old, she started reporting things that the dad was doing to her. And she was, I think, just before she was 6 years old, but it had been going on since she was 3. Mm-hmm. So the mother now is traumatized, finds out, and 4 days later is trying to get, Health and Human Services, Child Protective, all that stuff to prevent him from having access to their daughter.
Right.
And when they interviewed the daughter, the first state where she reported it and then was moved to another state, they said that she was too well spoken. She must have been coached that to be able to tell that her father had raped her and touched her and violated her since she was 3 years old. And I'm telling you, that just got under my skin in a way, because I remember what happened when I was 3, and my abuse started even before 3. But the counselors and the people I had to, work with to kind of get through all of that, that's what they were able to determine. But I know exactly at 3 years old forward and why I wanted to kill myself at age 5. And children who report, and they can give detail about the anatomy even of their predator, like this young girl was so brave to do, even though it was her dad. And because he's an immediate family member, it makes sense that she knows what he looks like, but especially when he's violating her. So they wanted to basically, they still are dealing with this, but to take the kids away from the mother and let dad have visitation with the older girl. He wanted both girls, but they finally came to some sense and will not let him see the 2-year-old. But they just cannot understand how a 6-year-old can speak well. And I'm going to say this, and it might make people upset. The mother homeschools her children, and statistics, okay, not Andi, not you, Chris, statistics show that homeschooled kids are above average in some areas, including communication. Doesn't mean people that go to public schools or any other schools aren't also above average. But, in this case, the girl is being schooled by the mother and has active communication regularly, does not have a lot of TV time, that kind of stuff. But more importantly, what age in this particular state is the age where they'll believe a child? So naturally, I had to write and explain, you have no idea what you're doing. And if they want to put this girl in foster care for 2 years while they sort it out, and she did nothing wrong.
That's terrible.
And so why aren't we listening to our children, Chris? Because if I could have reported, that's why I wanted to kill myself at age 5, at age 8, and age 9. And only by the grace of God, did I survive until, now. But this little girl is so brave and so courageous because she wants to be free from this monster. And yet the system is saying, you can't possibly know what you're talking about. And one of the things I wrote, which I had never disclosed before, is like ever, especially publicly, was because no one listened to me. By the time I got to the age where most young women go in for their first, OBGYN experience, let's just say that doctor knew something had happened to me, but I was too ashamed to talk about my childhood, and I wouldn't have done it at that time. But that is the reason I have not been able to bear children, because of what happened. If somebody would have listened to me, that might have been something I could have had the joy of. And there's a lot of other damage. So let me go to a different part of that scenario. Physical is not the only thing that happens in a violation. You have the mental, emotional, the sexual, obviously, even spiritual. Some people use spiritual reasons for things, like my birth mother did, which is completely wrong and messed up. But the physical doesn't just last as long as the violation does. We now know scientifically, medically, that one sexual assault on a child under the age of 18, any age in that range, one sexual assault can result in up to 73 illnesses, ailments, autoimmune issues, diseases, and cancer. So imagine those kids that they found that have been violated 20, 25 times a day, or more or less. It doesn't really matter. After the first one, they're going to suffer and not know it. Doctors are not schooled in this. You know, some of them are enlightened, but 3 out of 5 girls, maybe, you know, it's based on reporting, but I'm going to say 3 out of 5. That means any woman that comes through that office, you know, 3 out of 5 are going to have had some kind of domestic violence or sexual assault or other things. And for men or boys, it's kind of like 2 out of 6, maybe. Some people say 2 out of 8. But again, it's only what's reported. I didn't become a statistic till I was in my early 30s getting counseling.
Yeah. Well, you know, Blanche even mentioned that this is his words. He said that what he saw on these reports were things that nightmares were made of. And he said some of these in the 600 to 700 kids, some of these cases that they saw, these kids had been raped over 40 times. And you just mentioned 20. And he was reporting that some of these kids had been raped at least that many times. And again, and you know, he's just basing that on a report. It's probably likely higher. And it's just so disgusting that people would denigrate kids like this. But we live in a world, I want to make it clear tonight, that we live in a world that is this evil. And I know it's hard for people to get their head around. And by the way, your comment on homeschooling, I'm all with you there. I'm no fan of the public school system whatsoever. I'm no fan of our family court system whatsoever. I'm no fan of anything right now. Except the efforts by the Trump administration to stop this stain, and it is a stain on our landscape in this country, and we've got to do what we can to stop it. I don't know if we're going to find these 300,000 kids. That's a lot of kids, Andy. To me, that's
a lot of kids.
That's states. Some states don't have that many people living in it.
I know. The ones they found are 3 times the size of my city right now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a lot of, and if I don't know if you caught how they did this. Think about this, Chris, and for everyone listening, these 3 agencies, you know, DHS, DOJ, and Health and Human Services, they went on foot. They went door knocking. They did wellness checks. They did site visits. They put the work into it, you know, whereas many people who object to all of this, they don't do anything except write about it or, you know, speak about it or lie about it. And so I tell anyone, really, if you think that America created this or that this evil just popped up in the last 30, 40 years, then explain how in the early 60s it happened to me. Right? There wasn't anything politic about it. It was just swept under the carpet. Kids were chattel then, and if they were abused, you didn't go to that uncle's house or grandpa's house or whoever the perpetrator was. And a lot of children, even in those days, were considered expendable. You know, they didn't have reporting of child abuse the way we have it now, let alone any of the other things. But a child that has been abused is more likely to end up being trafficked. And they're vulnerable.
Very true.
They don't know what to expect. They think somehow they deserved it. I used to think I must have been too stupid or too whatever for people to want to do the things they did to me. Nobody heard my screams. Nobody felt the pain. I lived with that my entire life until I was in my early 30s, and an unfortunately abusive marriage, which is not surprising, and then the divorce, and then subsequently met the most amazing human I've ever known, and we've been married 25 years. But the whole thing is not everyone ends up the way I did.
That's true, Andy. That's so true. Folks, if you got a question for Andy, we've got another 15 minutes, and I'm opening the floor up to you tonight. Anything you'd like to ask her, we'd be glad to ask her. Was there any resolution on that case that you mentioned, or what was the resolution?
It's still in process. It's still active. We do know that the 2-year-old will not be allowed to be alone with the father, or he's not allowed to have custody at this time. But the 6-year-old is still at risk.
Let me ask you this. This sort of opens a question for me. I'll ask this. I read a story. It wasn't here. It was overseas. It may have been England, which that shouldn't shock us. There was 3 boys that gang raped a girl. The judge gave those 3 boys 0 jail time, no jail. And I'm not so sure that the probation even was over a year. Is it safe to say that this floodgate that we're experiencing against our kids and this evil rests with the judicial system and stuff like that? Because there's no fear, Andy, if somebody gets caught. If that dad came before me as a judge, let me tell you something. That dad would not see daylight for the rest of his natural born life. He just wouldn't.
There you go.
And I mean,
exactly what I was saying.
I wouldn't have any sympathy whatsoever for that. I just don't. And this idea, and I know this is a area that, again, like you said a while ago, people may disagree with this, and that's fine. It's all right. This is the Mac Files, and we can share the Mac File opinion. They can have whatever opinion they go. I do not believe that rehabilitation is in itself going to stop. It's a spiritual matter. This is a spiritual issue. It requires deliverance. But when you're talking judicially, okay, when you're talking judicially, how hard is it for the courts to determine whether that predator, that pedophile, will go back out if they give him a lenient sentence, go back out and do it again? What's the reciprocal rate of that? Because is it often, or is it they do their time, they come out, they're fine, or are they worse?
Well, that's a good question. That's a big question. I don't have stats on that, but here's what I can speak to. A lot of times, and I know that they've done studies where, X% of folks in jail have been abused or whatever, but I didn't become an abuser. I made choices that were different than the people that hurt me. So I do believe free will, free choice. You don't have to be that way. If it's between an adult and a child, I don't care what happened in your life. You must be responsible for their safety and protection, period. And that's my hard line. Like people said, oh, well, I actually had people tell me when my story started coming out that, well, they were probably abused. Like it made that okay. And I was like, no, that's not okay. If you birth a child, adopt a child, if you have a child in any way, shape or form, you are responsible till they are 18 years old. In my opinion, that's the legal age that you can be separated, but you're responsible for their safety, especially children. They're tiny, they're little, their arms break when you yank them, things like that. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I know that a lot of my heart condition, my autoimmune, my spine, all the things that have been wrong for a very long time, a lot of that came from all the abuse, from being beat down and all the other things that happened and how they used to make a ritual of that. So I'm saying that, yes, I believe that at the core, you can choose good or evil. And you can also choose to do nothing. 2 of those are bad. Okay. Right. 2 of those are non-productive and can kill a society. The good one is people need to get informed, get educated, go to our site, at least put the helplines and hotlines in your phone. So if you see something, you can call a safe number and they'll help, get things going for you. In terms of reporting, you don't have to rat anyone out. I had people decades later say, oh yeah, we knew your mom or your dad or whatever, but we didn't want to get involved. We didn't want to upset the apple cart.
Well,
I wish they had
the apple cart sometimes. I do want to ask you a question about, and this is a very touchy subject, and it gets really into the weeds of some stuff. But I am curious because I know that when you read a lot of these stories, a lot of times parents traffic their own kids. Yeah. And I'm not even talking about step issues, and I'm not even talking about foster kids. I'm talking about actual blood kin, blood mamas, blood daddies. What percentage of this pedophilia and this trafficking, you may not have an exact figure, but in general, is that increasing in our society? Because I see more and more stories of that where these parents are being arrested and taken into custody for selling their kids for sex, trafficking them, abusing them, and again, it's inwardly, it's inside the house, and that's got to be harder to find than even the
Oh,
cartel guy down
absolutely.
there that's bringing an illegal child over the border. The coyotes you can probably point to quicker, but you get a regular person in a house, it's a little difficult, isn't it?
It is, and here's why. And we're gonna include the judicial part in this as well. Familial trafficking, which is what family trafficking is called. Okay, there are literally people who are raising children, grooming them to be groomers. Okay, from in-house. Okay, in the house, in the family unit, immediate family members who have babies and raise them, and then teach them how to be groomers because of the money train. And, money is the god of many people in this country, and it never used to be that way. It used to be where, people loved God and country. And now the almighty dollar, such as it is, it's sickening that anyone would breed children to become traffickers. Okay. So, and they do sell their children for money, not because they're poor or in need, but because they can get a lot of money out of it. And so that is true. The judicial system, here's what happens. Oh, it's a misunderstanding. Oh, the child doesn't know what they're talking about. Oh, but their family's so upstanding. The dad has this job and the mom's this. And so familial trafficking, there are still a lot of judiciaries that believe kids belong with their parents, even though the parents are the abusers. When I put myself through law school, Chris, that was one of the reasons I didn't become a lawyer. I graduated, got my Juris Doctor. Natural redheads don't know the word quit. So I finished. And I took my law degree back to business because I knew if I was successful enough, I could save anybody I wanted. Right. And that's what I did because I saw judges turn kids back to the family. I was trapped because in that time, I was still a minor at 17. Even though I had graduated high school, I was still a minor and, turned 18 right before I got myself to college. But I would have been sent back to that house and I probably wouldn't have survived it.
That's scary, isn't it? I mean, that adds an element to this that these kids, Andy, we got a situation. Our kids are in great danger tonight.
They are.
This is a dangerous trend. I got a great question for you. Carol Smith in YouTube tonight. Carol, good to see you, dear. She said, I'll just read it to you. She says, although, how does she say this? She says, although I'm sure this has been going on, is there a point in time that it increased greatly? I don't recall hearing about it in the 50s and 60s. And, she's right. I was born in 65. Of course, I wouldn't have known what they heard in the 50s and 60s then, contrary to rumor. But seriously, though, she's got a point because when did this go mainstream as it has tonight? It's a great question.
It is a great question. Thank you for that, Carol. I'm going to guesstimate. See, when I had my counseling, I would have been 30-ish, so that would put me in the early 90s. It existed, but I would say, as she says, it went mainstream, more public in the last 25 years, maybe.
So that would put us around 2000, maybe 2000. Bush
Maybe
time.
A little before, but in the U.S., it wasn't so prevalent. But then when you have an administration that opens Pandora's box and it's a free-for-all, do whatever you want. I mean, look at the family, look at the kids of that particular president.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot to brag about there, and no offense, but, that's the truth. It's like, I wouldn't want to be in the same room. I still feel like I need to take a shower whenever Hunter Biden's name is mentioned.
Yeah.
So
great point.
It's just the way it is.
Well, and, even Clinton, to a degree, even though it wasn't kids with him, but the whole, we've had some, we've just had some scoundrels in the White House, have we not? And Obama, they just give you the creeps. They just do. And this Sniffing Joe and what he did with the kids. When's the last time? Well, I don't think I can think of in history ever a president acting toward children like that. And the media gave him a pass. The media gave him a pass. And before I go on, because I'll forget this question if I don't, Stephen Hoyt, another great question. How do we toughen the laws against this stuff? And that's to me the $1 million question. But I'm going to answer that a little bit. And I'll let you chime in on this. Andy,
Okay.
I think the laws are tough enough now. We're just not enforcing them. And I think that's the
Exactly.
difference. That's the difference between Trump and past presidents. The laws are on the books. People go to jail for 100 years for this crap if they're convicted, if they would just be handled legally right.
That's right. I had a district attorney in my own area. This is about 6, 7 years now, who said we didn't have human trafficking in our area because he didn't prosecute it.
Wow.
And he did that publicly 4 times. So here's the thing. Yes, you're right. They get paid off. We got influences that people can't even imagine. So if a DA or someone else, there are good people in law. There are good things that happen. As a country overall, we actually have the better, judicial system than most countries out there. However, we also have a judicial system that's been prostituted by, money and outside influences. So here's the thing. We have to enforce the laws on the books. I believe it's 20 years. Federal law says 1 count. If you're convicted of 1 count of trafficking, that's a 20-year sentence. It could be up to 20 years. Why don't we enforce that? Oh, well, we don't want to put that many people in jail. Our jails would be overcrowded. Well, so be it then. Maybe we ought to do something to deter the behavior. We're not going to get rid of depravity, okay? Human depravity is what it is. However, we can curb the appetites. We can make the deterrence out there.
Correct.
We can turn the numbers around so that your child or your sister or your cousin or your nephew aren't the next victims.
Come on, bud. Come on.
And so, everybody gets upset when it hits home and then they want action. But the ones complaining about this, wait till I hope it doesn't, but wait till it happens closer to their home than it did to mine. Things like that. You have to understand there are no politics involved when the cartel goes after your kid or your nephew or your niece. There are no politics involved. The only thing that's involved is money and product.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know the family court system, Bear commented, she said that she's dealing with this herself. The family court system is a mess. And I do believe these judges are turning a blind eye to it. And, it's just a sad state of affairs. Sort of unrelated question, but related a little bit. Do you think that if this investigation that Blanche is launching and Mullen, if it does touch big name people, and maybe it does eventually, do you think that will restore the public's faith in the judicial system at all? Or do you think that this is, Andy, the truth of the matter is Trump's going to be with us 3 years, 2.5 years right now. That's max. And we don't know what we're going to get after this. We don't know if somebody's going to be as aggressive as he is with this. We could wind up going back to the same nightmare that we've had for the last 4 with this. But do you feel like there's any hope that this judicial systems and we have our faith restored, that people are going to look out for our kids? Because, look, I hate to say this tonight, and this is no reflection on anybody in particular, but the truth of the matter is, parents, in this time that we're living in of history, I think we have taken it for granted that the school system raise our kids, the church raise our kids, everybody else raise our kids but us. We think the school's going to protect our kids. We think the church is going to protect our kids. We think the government's going to protect our kids. And many times, those 3 agencies I just mentioned, they're the very ones that are predatorizing our kids. Because I hadn't even got to the church stuff, because we've had...
I know it.
Maybe next show we'll talk about that. I'd like to get you back and talk about the church element, because there's a lot of pastors, a lot of priests that are doing this very thing, and there's trafficking in the church. There has been so many things that have been said about that, but I'm just talking about this family, trafficking tonight you're talking about. And the government, because the government, there's people in the government, Andy, that are I'm go ahead and lay it on the table. I think there's high ranking people in government on both sides of the aisle that are committed to protecting this industry. They're committed to protecting this because there's too much money in it. And I think they're getting some of this. That's a dangerous place that society reaches when those that have been ordained to protect you are actually the one predatorizing you.
Well, and when you go to vote, let me ask your audience this. Do you actually find out whether the person you want to vote for has done anything to bring more training or more awareness about human trafficking, or done any work in that area, or done anything to say, we will protect the children in this community? Because if they can't show you that, don't vote for them. Don't give them money. If they start doing it only during the campaign, don't vote for them. Don't give them money. Find the people that do the work without the glory, okay, and are trying to change the judicial system. There is a huge issue with our judicial system. There's good and bad. And I just want to make this clear. I know we talked about a couple different administrations. You're right. All sides of the aisle, the middle, the left, the right, everybody is complicit. There will always be somebody who's greedier or who sees an easy way out to make a bunch of money, right? We see all the fraud that's happened, that's been uncovered recently, in different states and for different things. So how can that much garbage be allowed? Well, because we're not doing our part, Chris. Each one of us has a responsibility to either vote with an educated or informed perspective. And again, children are not political. They're not left. They're not right. They deserve the opportunity to be children that are safe, that are free, that are loved unconditionally or to the best of our abilities, because we're all human. But at the end of the day, children are the future of every neighborhood, every community, every state, and around every village around the world. So we must start putting children back up the ladder of importance. And why are we letting schools tell us what to do with our children? We need to tell the schools, where's the training on human trafficking? Where's the prevention? Stop all of this divisiveness and do something tangible. Because if both sides actually came together on this very nonpartisan issue, can you imagine what would happen? Then the country might have something to hope in. Then they might have something to believe in, because our trust has been broken. Well, look what has happened.
Well, I'm going to say this. We don't have time to get into because our time's up tonight. But another thing that's broken our trust is that there are people out there on social media that have claimed that they were rescuing these kids, and come to find out they were bigger frauds than the cartels.
Of course.
And people
it's
were
an easy cover.
Multiple thousands of dollars to somebody that was claiming they were going down to the border to rescue these kids, and they wasn't even leaving their mailbox. But people were hailing them as great warriors. And they're in, a few of them I know, one of them especially is in federal prison tonight for fraud. And I think that destroys trust, because when the people that, again, are supposed to stand up truly for the kids, and I think of Tim Ballard tonight and how much he was demonized by not the left, but he was demonized, Andy, by the right and by these woke media types and these fraudsters who turned out to be frauds themselves. But the sick thing about it is that Christians gave money to it and pushed these people, and still have their stuff on their timelines acting like that they were God sent to rescue these kids, when they themselves were worse, far worse than even the cartels themselves. That destroys trust in the system, does it not?
Absolutely.
And I'll let you wrap us up on that. I'll let you wrap us up on that.
Okay, it's a great con, and like anything, any good thing can be turned around for criminal gain, and so that's why we must be diligent and we have to be careful. Our Voices Against Trafficking is all volunteer driven. Nobody gets paid. Trust me. I would have a vacation if we got paid, but that's not important when it comes to this issue. And so every dollar we get, we're a 501c3. It goes back to what we do. And there's no staff. And all of our members are also doing their own nonprofits or their own businesses. So we come together out of a commitment to our national community to do something. And in 6 years, the books, the magazines, the CD, we're in Uganda and Pakistan and Mexico and other places, and we have no staff, and we still get the work done because we're committed to doing that. So people need to do their due diligence on these organizations. Ask for financial records, or ask people, show me this, or do you know about this? And don't just take for granted that the media is going to tell you the truth.
And social media personalities too, because that's where a lot of it's coming. Buddy, I wish we had more time. We're out of time. But listen, please promise me in a week or two. Let's do this again because I've really
Sure.
and I was hoping we'd have more people on tonight. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed we didn't have as many. I'm glad for those that are here, but I really thought this topic would bring out people. But I guess people are more worried about Epstein than they are missing kids. But I'm grateful for those that have been with us tonight. I'm not saying that in a snarky way, but I think that it just I think we need to start. We need to be concerned about this. This is something that we should take to heart, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
is the country just gotten so? What's the word I'm looking for? Have we gotten so numb to this that these programs don't even face us no more? That we just listen to this and we shrug our shoulders and again, it's not a criticism or anything. It's just reached this point that this stuff has saturated our landscape so much, Andy. It's almost like a hardness of heart. It don't even make us blush or cause us to even shed a tear anymore. That scares me more than the stuff itself does.
Yes, it does. It scares a lot of people, whether you believe, in God or not. The point is, it's a hard truth, but we can change that. I've seen hardness soften when enough people get behind it, and that, is why we have our movement. We started this movement because we couldn't walk, on Washington during COVID and stuff, and we're not going to stop until, there isn't anything left to do, which probably will be never. But at this point, our country has lost trust because they don't see anyone being taken to justice for it. The few things, you have to have a Lake and Riley before people get upset. You have to have some of these other horrific things before people, oh, wow, that's terrible. And then they go back to their pizza tomorrow, right?
That's so true.
So,
no, that's so true.
Yeah. We have become numb, as you said, and we need to get our feelers back because there are a lot of people out there hurting. And when it happens in your neighborhood or to your family, you will feel a pain that is unlike anything else. And I don't wish that on anyone. But we also need to make sure that we exercise our rights to have people prosecuted. Don't let them get away with it. If you're sitting there and you're like, well, that was interesting, but what can I do about it? Go to our website, voicesagainsttrafficking.com, put those helplines and hotlines in your phone at the very least, and share this broadcast with somebody.
Yeah. Very well said, friend. Listen, I'm so grateful for you and your fight with this, and I encourage people to visit your website, voicesagainsttrafficking.com. You'll see Andi's picture. She's the only natural redhead on the page. Just had to throw that in. You'll pick Andi up right quick. You'll see her right quick. We normally have her on video, but we had to go audio tonight. Next time we'll get you on video. I want you to come
That's
back.
right.
We got a lot more to cover about this, and I want to thank you again for your fight. And
Absolutely, my
you got
pleasure.
a friend, buddy. You got a friend here on the Mac Files, and I want to talk with you about getting some more guests, along this line. I think we need to up our activity here to make people aware of this more than we've done probably in these 8 years, and I feel bad about that. But I think this is what we need to really start hammering, because I think people do get numb to it, and if they're not confronted with it, they're not going to do anything about it. And we've all got a role to play in this. And I'll wrap it up.
Absolutely.
God
And we
bless
can
you.
do this. We can do this. So thank you so much for the honor of being on again. I look forward to our next chat.
Sounds good, Andi. Have a great night. Take care now.
You too.
Andi Buerger, everybody. Put some fire in that house for her. What a guest. And I'm grateful to all of you. I don't want you to take that comment I made a while ago. I'm upset with people that are here. Not a bit. I just know certain topics I would think the topics I think will draw people in. People are just I don't care about, and other topics that I'm just sort of not sure about. We'll have tons, thousands of people listen to it. So you just never know. This is important. This is important tonight, and I just pray that you will take to heart what Andi Buerger has said tonight. Put some fire in that house for these statistics are staggering, and this case that she told me about that she was handling is involved in. It's just so tragic that she is having to face this and to fight for these kids, and that's what Voices Against Trafficking do. They help these kids, and they when they're rescued. This is where Voices of Trafficking, and they try to keep us informed and so forth. And we're going to do a better job ourselves of keeping you informed of this. I will repeat this as I close tonight. one of the things that's happening is that there have been so many fraudsters out there that have tainted the efforts of people and the real people like Andi Buerger, Voices Against Trafficking, by fraudulently claiming that they were doing something for the kids and all they were doing was racking in money, fraudulently taking money, lying out of their backside, people believing them without checking them out, without any kind of discernment, pushing these people. The Christian community pushed this one person on a lot of people as if she was the angel of rescuers. And, thank you for your courage. I'd say that all the time. Thank you so much for your courage. Turned out it was a complete fraud. Not one claim she made was true. Nothing. Probably millions of dollars that could have went to organizations like Voices Against Trafficking went to these fraudsters. We've got to restore faith into who's doing this too. That's part of this battle, sadly. I'm a podcaster. I'm a broadcaster. And it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to get people on that are legitimate. And I'm just, as I said, this issue, when you got 300,000 missing kids, they're the ones that pay for these fraudsters. They're the ones that pay for this. And we got to tighten the ship. I'll just say it like this as I close tonight. We got to tighten the ship. We just do. Now, it's a little after 10 in the east. I just got home from McDonald's South and got home in time to put Andi on. I'm going to take a little break and have a late supper. And I want you to come back with me around 11 o'clock, 11:15. Leslie Milway, if she's still up tonight, I think she told me she could stay up with us. She's going to come on. We're going to talk Iran tonight a little bit, this deal. J.D. Vance was on the View Tour today, and we got some thoughts about that, and we're going to take your thoughts and comments. I'm just going to take about 5 minutes. If you've still got any questions, any comments about what we've said tonight, go ahead. Good to see Lisa Esco. Thank you, Lisa. It was very informative. I really am grateful. I'm grateful that we had Andi on tonight. Mary Cleveland, good to see you. I know that the notifications don't get to people sometimes. It's fine. We're just grateful you're here tonight. We're not fussing. Trust me. I'm not fussing. I'm just grateful that those that got in. And may the Lord bless all of you. Anything, we'll be back around 11:15 tonight. Join us for Leslie Milway. Any questions real quick before I let you go? Any statements? A lot of people. Did you enjoy Andi tonight? I tell you what, she did an outstanding job. Folks, I encourage you, please vet these organizations. If you don't want to check into Voices Against Trafficking, please vet these people on the internet. And I'm going to just go on record. Tim Ballard risked his life to rescue this young girl. And all he got for it was nothing but accusation, innuendo, slander, nothing but people with no class, absolutely no class, no character, who wouldn't even probably go down the road to try to rescue somebody from the same issue. But they've got enough energy in this sewer called their tongue to go out and slander people like him and others. That's the state of our country. That's the state of our country tonight. That's why we got 300,000 still kids missing kids still missing. We got to do better as a country. We got to do better as a nation. Got to do better as a church. We just do. I'll leave that on. That's my opinion. That's my final word. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. Much love. Thank you, Andi Buerger. Great stuff tonight, as always. And thank you all for being with us tonight. And we'll be back here about an hour or so. And we got a lot to talk about still on a double feature Tuesday night on the Mac Files. God bless you out there. Have a good night, everybody. Come on back and be with us later.